Hello and welcome to E Pluribus Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, if you're a fan of my other series of videos, you know, the party histories, the political ideology, highly edited videos I do, you might be in luck, because pretty soon we might be getting into a big one. A very important one. A very cool one. But maybe. I don't know. But with that housekeeping out of the way, let's get right into the news. Okay, so first I'm going to go over I don't have a particular story for this, but I'm going to go over what has been going on in the Bolivia crisis at the moment. Because I've kind of been not covering that as much as I should. To be fair, a lot of things have happened in a short amount of time, but I mean, it still probably should have been covered at one point. Okay, so first, Evo Morales has been kicked out of his presidency. That's been done for a while now. And he has a replacement that is currently in place. Her name is Jeanine Áñez. Now, what is Áñez? Like, is she a good replacement for him? Well, let's take a look at our political party's stance. Liberalism, conservative liberalism, social market economy, regionalism, federalism, deliberative democracies, center-right. Okay, so far, not so good. Second, when she went to replace him, she was carrying a Bible and was like, the Bible will now go back to where it belongs, in the Capitol. And I'm like, alright. She has not been any accepting of Morales and his indigenous, she doesn't even like indigenous people. Like, she's described their rituals as satanic. She has said that people who are not she said that people who are indigenous are lesser people because they don't wear shoes. And there's even one, she even said, like, this country does not belong to the Indians. And it's like, it's clear that she is not the good replacement for Morales at all. One big criticism that has been levied, not against Áñez, but someone in the U.S., was to candidate Tulsi Gabbard, because Gabbard has not made a statement on the Bolivian crisis, despite the fact that she is the foreign policy candidate, and should be against all these coups that are going on. And the thing is, she keeps saying, like, oh, I gotta do more research, How come I, a 19-year-old who does, like, a fucking political show in his bedroom, can get all the information ready to go? There was an election. Morales barely beat his competitor. His competitor is like, no, you're not the legitimate president. And then a far-right fascist people who literally do Sieg Heils. Like, literally, there's video of opposition to Morales going Sieg Heil. And the person by the way, the person who, like, Áñez, I don't think there was a vote to have her as the president. She just said, I'm president now. Like, I mean, you call Morales authoritarian. He had 3 elections to have him be president. She didn't even get a vote. Like, I mean, I'll be fair and say maybe Morales shouldn't have run for a 3rd term and should have instead had his VP run in his place. But that's irrelevant. Morales ran for a 3rd term that was constitutionally eligible for him to do. And he was kicked out of his seat. Like, he was kicked off of the presidency. He had to freaking sleep he had to make a makeshift tent. He's fled to Mexico Agnes says that Morales can't come back for another attempt, even though he's out of power. So theoretically, he could run, and there wouldn't be that much of cause of a election rigging because he's not in power. But well, I mean, there are millions of people. There are, like, recently there was 8 protesters that are dying at the moment due to the fact that they were protesting for Morales to return. But I mean, the media and everybody keeps saying, like, no, this is a big win for democracy because Morales was bad. Oh, really? Can you cite me any particular thing that Morales did wrong? He ran for a 3rd term. He wasn't supposed to. The Supreme Court of his country ruled that he could. But he controlled the court. Okay, yeah, so if Donald Trump ran for a 3rd term, and like, if he got his Supreme Court to say that 3rd terms were okay, and then he ran for a 3rd term, yeah, you could say it's a dick move, but constitutionally, that would be the law. You could challenge the law, but nobody challenged it at the time. Why didn't they challenge it if they thought it was so wrong? To be fair, there were some iffy things on regards to that. It's weird. It's a little weird. I will be fair, but in the law book, like in a court of law, Morales would be in the right. And I mean, it's no surprise that he's in Mexico now. I mean, AMLO is one of the only people who's kind of stood up for Morales, or at least who's actually in power. AMLO's in power. Corbyn, Bernie, they're not in power. Anyways, now onto a story that I don't think is getting much coverage. 34 Palestinians killed in 2 days as Israel bombs Gaza Strip. In the Gaza Strip, Palestinians have agreed to a tenuous ceasefire with Israel's military after Israel launched its biggest attack on the territory in months. After the ceasefire took effect overnight, at least 5 rockets were launched from Gaza, prompting air raid alarms in southern Israel, where 1 million Israeli children were ordered to remain at home. Several Israelis reported minor injuries from falling rockets. Gaza's health ministry says 34 Palestinians were killed in the fighting, with dozens more wounded. Among the dead were 8 members of a single family, including 5 children, who were crushed to death when an Israeli airstrike flattened their home. The fighting erupted after Israel bombed the home of a senior member of the Palestinian group Islamic Jihad on Tuesday, killing the commander and his wife and injuring their children. Now, I mean, of course, you're going to have certain people say certain things. Some people say, oh, Israel was right to defend itself. Some people, of course, would argue, no, Israel is doing this because they have a power grab in the area. Now, let me explain very simply. Technically, yes, Israel does have a right to defend itself. However, Israel needs to learn how to aim their freaking guns. Because if, like, this is weird, but, like, think about it. Technically, doesn't Israel have the worst military now? Because they always seem to be like, we're going to kill this terrorist. Oops, we accidentally killed 34 people. Like, come on. I think it's easy to tell who's a terrorist and who's not a terrorist. The 5-year-old child, the amputee who protests Israel, like, I'm pretty sure he is not a terrorist. Israel has the backing of the United Nations. They should know who is they should know who is a child who is just living in Palestine and who's a terrorist. Now, of course, the thing is, many people would say, well, I mean, yeah, shouldn't they? But here's the thing, they don't care. They don't discriminate because Israel, their ruling parties, the Likud, most prominently, many of their politicians have stated that they want to just massacre all the Palestinians so that there will be Israel. I'm pretty sure Benny Gantz's party's only slightly better. Like, oh, we won't directly kill. But either way, the Israeli military and parties, they don't necessarily care that much about Palestine because they don't see Palestine. They just see Israel, who is not Israel yet. That is who they see when they look at the Palestinians. They see Israelites who are not Israelites yet. And yet you can't criticize the Israeli government because, Holocaust. Guess what? There have been Israeli politicians who have legitimately said that they want to round up Palestinians and put them into camps. Does this not sound familiar to Israel? Israel, this should sound familiar to you. Palestine has no money, no power. They are not even considered a country. And yet people continually choose to blame Palestine for things Israel is clearly at fault for. Come on, Israel. How many times are you going to pull out that same excuse? Oh, they just put civilians in front of our guns. How many times are you going to pull that stupid bullshit excuse? Hopefully Palestine will have the ability to become a country. At one point in the future. I hope that maybe somehow Palestine gets to remain a country. And the thing is, there is truly only one way it can happen. A president literally has to just point their finger at Israel and tell them, hey, stop it. For real this time. We mean it. They have to do that. But the thing is, you're not going to get that many people who say that they will do that. Next story coming from another foreign country. Nigel Farage says Brexit Party candidates offered jobs to quit. Okay, so basically, here's the background of the story. Okay, so as we all know, there's going to be a 2019 UK elections, and a lot of the parties are going to be standing for election. The Brexit Party, led by Nigel Farage, have announced that they will not be running in any of the 317 constituencies that the Conservative Party won in the last general election. But they will be running everywhere else. Labour-held districts, Tory districts that aren't those 317, etc., etc. Now, they tried to get a deal with the Conservative Party to not run candidates against each other, much like how there's a group called Pact to Remain, or it's some coalition about remaining, with the Liberal Democrats, Sinn Féin, and the Green Party of England and Wales, but that official coalition didn't pan out. Now, it turns out that the Tory Party is actually going to be trying to give the Brexit Party people jobs in order for them to not run in their constituencies. Now, personally, I really don't have a say in this because I'm not a person in the UK and I will not directly be affected by Brexit. But personally, I feel that if Brexit is to happen, there has to be a customs union. I'm basically on the grounds of there has to be a good Brexit deal. There can't be no deal. But anyways, again, I don't really have much to say on that because I'm not a member of the UK. I don't know much about the ins and outs of Brexit. Well, I try my best, but it's not, I don't think I'll have the best thing to say. You should ask people like Jeremy Corbyn or George Galloway. The next story is coming from California District 25. Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks files to run for Congresswoman Katie Hill's seat one day after endorsing Sanders. Cenk Uygur, host of the Young Turks, a progressive online news channel, filed for Congress on Wednesday to replace resigned former Congresswoman Katie Hill. The 49-year-old, alongside his co-host Anna Kasparian, also endorsed Senator Sanders for president on their show, praising his approach to completely and utterly changing the system. Now, here's the thing. The actual ins and outs of this are mixed. Like, I currently have a poll on my Twitter, which I should have made it so that it would be done today, but it's not. It's still going. It's all going on for 4 more days. But pretty much I asked, Cenk is probably running in California District 25, and I wanted to gauge the progressive response. And it turns out that, here's the breakdown. I put 2 options. Hell yeah and fuck no. 62% went with hell yeah, and 38% went to fuck no. Now, of course, I understand why the results are as mixed as they are. Cenk Uygur is a bit of a iffy figure in the progressive kind of circles. On one hand, they see him as like, oh, he started as a huge, big, prominent lefty voice, and he's the host of the largest lefty news show on the internet. But then on the other hand, people also see him as, oh, I'm a blue no matter who, like kind of guy. Now, what are my thoughts on it? Well, I myself am kind of mixed. Especially considering there's some other things that I have found out in a little bit of the ins and outs of it. So for starters, I originally thought that Cenk would put literally all of his effort and all of his, like, everything in him to run in the district. But it turns out that's not the case. It turns out Cenk is actually going to be running on some days and then hosting the Young Turks on other days. Now that makes me confused. I'm like, I mean, if I were running for office, you know, that's it for the show. I wouldn't do the show for the... Well, I mean, I guess I could still do my fireside chats, but I mean, I wouldn't do it in the same way. Obviously, they'd have to be restructured for the campaign, but that's different. Cenk is going to be doing a full-time news show on certain days, and on certain days he will not when he is campaigning. That's a little confusing. Now, the second thing is also, he doesn't live there. He doesn't live in the district. He is only running in the district because it's open. The seat's open. So it does seem a bit opportunistic, especially considering Cenk Uygur could have ran in the 2018 California Senate race, and he didn't. It's a seat that he could legitimately call his home, but he didn't do that. He instead opted to not do that. Now, the third thing is there's no healthcare plank in his platform. Like, his platform is corruption in politics, higher wages, supporting small business, immigration rights, environmental justice, and climate change. But the thing is, like, I mean, he doesn't say, like, oh, I am for Medicare for all. And I don't even think, like, these aren't specific policies. These are like, oh, I'm not going to let big business run over you. Okay, but how will you do that? And I know what you're saying. Oh, but Cenk just announced he's running today. But here's the thing. He is a news media host. He can 100% make a good policy platform on day one of his campaign, but he won't. I don't know why. This is just a thing that's been bothering me about a lot of politicians. On the first day of their campaign, they will not, like, have a full policy platform planks on their website. It bothers me. Wouldn't that be, like, first thing? But I mean, now this is the biggest thing. The biggest thing everybody on this YouTube channel that you might want to hear me say, will I endorse Cenk Uygur? I don't know. You'll have to wait and see. I don't know. Like I said, he doesn't have a healthcare plank on his platform. That's the one thing. Like, I mean, again, it's literally the one thing. If it's not, Medicare for All is my number one issue. If you're not running on Medicare for All, the end. Like, I mean, there's some people who are supposedly progressive people in North Carolina. They're not running on Medicare for All. No Medicare for All, no deal. The only exception would be if you legitimately cannot do Medicare for All in your seat. Like, if you're running for city council, okay, fine. You don't have to say you're for Medicare for All. You can, if you want, but you don't have to. But anyways, next story, which is not a surprise at all. Former South Carolina Governor Mark Sanford has dropped out of the presidential race. The end of former South Carolina Governor Mark Sanford's run for president came under light snow and gray skies. Standing outside the New Hampshire State House surrounded by 15 members of the media and 2 staffers, the long-shot Republican closed his campaign some 65 days after it began. What am I, striking out or something? Holding an oversized $1 trillion check to represent the national debt, Sanford said his singular focus in the 2020 bid had been to advance the debate on mounting government suspending and redressing the deficit. But you've got to be a realist, said Sanford, who spoke just shy of 16 minutes. Sanford had originally planned to be in a state house office on Friday to have his name added on the ballot in the first in the nation primary. Instead, it is where his run ended days after he vowed to spend all of November campaigning here. I'm going to suspend my campaign, and I'm going to look for other ways to advance these incredibly timely and important but now out-of-session issues. This is not surprising at all. Bill Weld and Joe Walsh literally have no traction either. The thing about these 3 guys is that they're all running for the same crowd of Republicans. And here's the thing. This crowd of Republicans doesn't really exist anymore. Like, I mean, what are these 3 running on? What are these 3 candidates running on? Well, they might have different issues and different ways to go about them. Bill Weld runs as more of a libertarian or a centrist. Joe Walsh kind of runs as a traditional conservative, and Mark Sanford tried to be a bit more libertarian-like. But the thing is, they were all running for the same crowd. Anti-Trump Republicans. But not anti-Trump Republicans like Justin Amash, who could actually have philosophical disagreements with him on foreign policy and such. But anti-Trump Republicans like formerly Mitt Romney, or Meghan McCain, or Evan McMullin. Those kinds of Trump Republicans that are like, oh, you can't say the bad words. And which is ironic because Joe Walsh, that was his bread and butter when he was a member of Congress. But they're all running for that crowd. But the thing is, that crowd doesn't exist. Rand Paul endorsed Trump, so, like, the thing is, there's, like, go to the libertarian crowd. That crowd of libertarian-leaning Republicans, that crowd actually exists. That crowd exists, and people vote for it. It's why someone like Gary Johnson did so decently. There was some Rand Paul-like Republicans who probably didn't like Donald Trump and might have voted for him instead. Like, I mean, it's a thing. You can actually run on a legitimate crowd that people would vote for. But you're not going to, because it's easier to get the bad man Trump, because then Democrats will be like, oh yes, finally the Republican Party is going to stand up for its old values once more. Like, that's what you're gonna get. They're not running to appeal to Republicans at all, because if they were, they'd go to the base and say, hey, Trump didn't pull out of any of his wars. Bill Weld, you were the vice presidential candidate of Gary Johnson. You should know that. But I mean, whatever. I don't care that much about the Republican primary, because Legitimately, none of them are going to win. But, they can try if they want. Sure, whatever. Speaking of no-shot people who are running for president, Deval Patrick files for New Hampshire primary. Former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick has filed for New Hampshire presidential primary as he officially begins a last-minute 2020 campaign. Who is Deval Patrick? I remember talking about him like a million years ago, but I can't remember which episode because nobody cares about Deval Patrick. Here's the thing, Deval Patrick, many people considered Cory Booker as Diet Obama. If that is the case, then Deval Patrick is Diet Cory Booker. And here's the thing, why would you want a diet of a diet? Nobody does. Which is why, legitimately, nobody cares about Deval Patrick. I don't even give a shit about his record. Nobody cares. In fact, what the hell? He can be the smaller candidate of the day because what do you know about Deval Patrick? There is one thing I know. Deval spent $11,000 on drapery for the governor's state house. He changed the state's customary car from a Ford Crown Victoria to a Cadillac. He gave the Commonwealth First Lady an annual salary of $75,000. He contacted Citigroup and other predatory payday lenders to set up shop in Massachusetts. He diverted $27 million in government funds to off-budget accounts that paid for trade junkets, advertising contracts, and a deal with federally subsidized tourism venture backed by Senator Harry Reid. And this one might be a big kicker. Deval Patrick fired the Massachusetts Sex Offender Registry Board Chair Sandra Edwards and placed the director, Jeanne Holmes, on paid administrative leave because they pressured the board to force Deval Patrick's brother-in-law to register as a sex offender because he was accused of raping someone. Now, here's the thing. Do you know who he was accused of raping? Deval's sister. This guy literally fired the person who would have put the guy who raped his sister on a watch list. Like, seriously? This is the guy who's like, oh, I want to run for president now. Seriously. Fuck Deval Patrick. Nobody cares. Well, I'll tell you who he's trying to get to care. Because right before he announced his running, he went to top Democratic donors. It's a bit obvious what he's trying to do. And, well, we'll see if it works, because it's clear Biden's failing, but I don't know if Buttigieg is. So yeah, he was the small candidate of the day because, like I said, nobody cares about Deval Patrick. So now let's get into the main topic of this video. The left's divide in the 2020 election. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, before we get into that, I'll have to set the scene. Back in 2016, pretty much every major left-wing candidate for public office, like Ro Khanna, Pramila Jayapal, Rahul Grijalva, Alan Grayson, Keith Ellison, every left-wing media figure, like Cenk Uygur, Kyle Kulinski, Jimmy Dore, and every left-wing major celebrity like Danny DeVito, pretty much every single left-winger in the United States who was either going to vote in the Democratic primary or who, pretty much everybody who wasn't registered to vote in another party's primary that was left-wing, were all backing Bernie. We all knew whose side we were on. It was Team Bernie or Team Hillary, and we were all on Team Bernie. The only exception, we'd get one or two people who would be for someone else, like Dylan Radigan being the one major lefty figure who was for Barry Lessig. But other than that, you'd pretty much we'd all be on the same boat. We're all on Team Bernie. Feel the burn, not me, us, etc., etc. We like Bernie, and we were all on that same boat. Until it was revealed that Hillary Clinton would be the presumptive nominee. What were we all gonna do now? And Bernie gave her his unofficial backing, pretty much. Like, yeah, she's the presumptive nominee. So, I mean, well, we had a good run, but that's it. I'm gonna keep campaigning, but, I mean, she's the presumptive nominee, so let's go. What were we gonna do? Like, who are we gonna back now? Are we gonna stay on the Bernie train? Like, were we all gonna try and pressure Bernie to run an independent campaign? Were we gonna back Hillary Clinton? Or were we going to back some kind of third-party candidate? And what would we tell other people who were unsure? Would we tell them to vote with us? Would we tell them it's fine if you vote someone else? What do we do? And that's where the seeds of discord started to be planted among the left. You see, some people who were on the Bernie train, like Cenk Uygur, Michael Moore, and like pretty much every elected Democrat, were all saying, we had our fun, we were all feeling the burn, but time to back Hillary Clinton. And some people were kind of like accepting of this idea. But then, around that same time, they're like, while they were floating this idea, the DNC email leaks happened. So it was pretty obvious not only was the election rigged against Bernie, so that he wouldn't have been able to win, but, I mean, just think about it. We couldn't say, so a lot of us would say, we can't back him, we can't back Hillary now that we know that the election was literally rigged against Bernie. So many people like Jimmy Dore and Kshama Sawant, Cornel West, Kyle Kulinski, all decided that they were going to back Jill Stein. But again, this is where the divide started happening. Some lefties were adamant on voting Jill Stein. Some lefties were saying, okay, I'll vote Jill Stein because I'm in a safe state. But if you were in a swing state, I'd highly suggest you vote for Hillary Clinton. But I mean, okay, you can vote for Jill Stein in a swing state if you want, but I mean, you should probably reconsider because, I mean, your vote could actually decide the election. Everybody was on this kind of divide. We didn't know what we were going to do. Some people were just so on the Bernie train that they were going to write him in rather than vote Jill Stein or vote Hillary Clinton. Now, again, that is where the divide started happening. Well, I mean, to be fair, there were also some people who were backing Bernie in the primary that were also going to back Gary Johnson. But, I mean, we all know who you are, Dave. But, yeah, that's where the divide started happening, and people were kind of... It was clearly starting to show. Like, Jimmy would consistently butt heads with someone like Sam Cedar or Ben Mankiewicz or Cenk Uygur over these votes. Kyle would be a bit more sympathetic because he would personally vote Jill Stein because he was more ideologically aligned with her, but he would advocate for, if you're in North Carolina or Ohio, vote Hillary Clinton because you can decide the election. But that's pretty much where the divide started happening. And the thing is, the divide did not go away because it was pretty obvious if, like, the people who were on the side of Jill Stein clearly saw that the people who were for Bernie than Hillary, it was kind of like, you guys aren't being intellectually honest. You spent the entire primary shitting all over Hillary Clinton, talking about literally everything wrong with her, and now all of a sudden, despite the fact that she's the antithesis of literally everything you believe in, you're going to vote for her. That is insane. You see, that's where you got the more hardliner progressives. Whereas people who were seen as more pragmatic, or people who were more Democrat-minded, like, you could tell who was a registered Democrat who would be doing that, and who would be a more independent-minded individual for doing that. Like, I mean, many prominent individuals like Cecil Bothwell. He was a member of the Asheville City Council, and was really well known for being an atheist in North Carolina. And he was super hardline progressive, going against, like, pretty much his party on a lot of stuff. Now he's backing Jill Stein because he couldn't see himself running for Hillary Clinton. And in fact, the divide actually started to grow more and more as the years went on, because now people were eyeing different people to seek the Democratic nomination for president in 2020. Some people were saying, oh, Bernie's time is done. It's time for him to pass the torch on to a new young face like Nina Turner or Tulsi Gabbard or Elizabeth Warren. Like, it's time for them to pass on the torch. But some people were saying, no, Bernie needs to 100% finish the job that he started last time. And again, the divide started drifting more. Some people were saying it's time for someone who's never been a politician. Sometimes people are saying we need a new issue. And in the current U.S. political scene, we are seeing that divide play amongst at this point, probably just 4 candidates. Bernie, Warren, Gabbard, Yang, and Williamson. Now, the Bernie supporters are kind of in a mixed bag. You can see most of the people who are supporting Bernie this time around are kind of like a mix of, like, all of the groups. But the other candidates are a bit more iffy. You see, Warren is people who supported Bernie last time around, but supported Clinton in general. You could tell that. And the people who are supporting people like Yang or Gabbard are some of the more people who were supporting Jill Stein in the general election. It shows a bit of a divide. I guess that's why a lot of people consider these two as potential third-party candidates in the future. Despite the fact that these guys have said 20 million times, oh, I'm not running as a third-party candidate. And Marianne Williamson kind of is in that same group, but again, her support is kind of waning at the moment, so we'll see how that goes. And with a lot of these groups, you could tell they have different approaches and different sets of issues that they put more precedent than others. Like, for example, people who are in the Tulsi camp are a lot more keen on foreign policy. People in the Yang camp are more in the, I guess, more of the economic policy in a sense. But, I mean, it's mostly due to the fact that they're kind of like they're like many of Yang supporters at this moment, I would say, are like the 16-year-old people who couldn't vote for Bernie last time around. You know, my kind of group. They're either still in high school or fresh out of high school, and they don't really know what to do. They want a Bernie with a new political issue, I guess. The people who are more in the Warren camp are more into the economic policy, like, you know, combating Wall Street, blah, blah, blah. And the people who are in the Bernie camp are pretty much the people who were in the Bernie camp last time around. Their focus is domestic policy, in a sense. Yeah, they're pretty much focused on the policy of Medicare for all and getting money out of politics and all that stuff. But mostly Med for all. Now, will this divide heal? Is a question that is interesting. Maybe, sort of, kind of, not really, I don't know. It's a huge, huge question. It's a huge debacle. Can this divide be healed? Yes, maybe, I don't know. For some groups, I'd say it's more likely than other groups. Because let me explain. There are some people in each of these groups that are a bit more hardline and a bit more, like admiring of their candidates. You mostly see it in the Yang and the Tulsi crowd at this time. But yeah, there are people in all these groups that are kind of hugely into their candidates, and if you question their candidate at one point or another, you will be put in a flame war. The group that seems to be more willing to rejoin each other is the Bernie group, but I guess that probably because out of all the candidates, Bernie is the most ideologically pure. Like, I mean, everybody's said it before and said it again. He's not he's not corruptible. People have tried to corrupt him before, and he will not be corrupted at all. Like, I mean, if you look at all these candidates, he has the most momentum. But I mean, to be fair, all these other candidates also have some form of momentum. Like, I can explain it very simply. I live in North Carolina, and here is how much campaign memorabilia I have seen so far of all the candidates. Now, you might say, well, I mean, how much is that? Meh, it's not a lot. To be honest, it is not a lot. But I have seen quite a few. I mean, when I say quite a few, of course I don't mean a lot. Again, let me explain. I have seen 4 Bernie bumper stickers, 2 of which were on the same car. Literally, one person put like a Bernie 2020 sticker over their Bernie 2016 sticker. I have seen 1 Warren bumper sticker and 1 Asian guy in a Target wearing a Yang Gang hat. Yeah. As you can see, these guys have the most momentum. So, inevitably, what it needs to come down is we all need to agree on, like, let's do what Nader tried to do to John Kerry in the last election. Let's try to find 5 issues that we all agree on, like 100%, no ifs, ands, or buts, and just run on these issues and see who's the best on all these issues. Hint, it's Bernie. But anyways, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Quora, or check out my articles on the Independent Political Report.